And I want to know more about, how do you deal with customers and how do you got to deal with restylers sometimes, right? They're really tough.
I think do the right thing for the customer has been always a motto. And we have a lifetime warranty. I think that makes it really easy. And my team also here knows we love our customers. We take care of them.
Welcome to the Ride and Style Podcast, your turbocharged pit stop for automotive restyling. Buckle up with Jesse and Josh.
Welcome to another episode of the Ride and Style Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse, with Josh, and today we're doing episode 16. We have Melanie White of Hellwig as our guest. Melanie, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, it's so fun to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's awesome to have Melanie in the house finally. And I've been waiting for this one,
Yay.
Jesse.
Awesome.
Not funny stories, but more important, we're talking about one of the most influential people in our industry, especially right now. So loving to have it. So you got to listen to everything she says. She's pretty sharp. Sometimes I try to get, a few questions there and stump her and haven't been able to do it so far.
Yeah.
So maybe today's my day.
I have to.
Today might be your day and when you're recording it.
Exactly. Oh, that I didn't even think about that. I have it on recording that I stumped her. Maybe we'll see. We'll see.
We have to.
Yeah.
I like to start with how you guys met, if you can remember, either one of you.
It might be different, Melanie. I'm afraid to ask. What's your first recollection? It's a funny story from my vantage point, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I feel like I've known you for so long. Like I don't remember the first time we met. Like we have been volunteering together for such a long time. And since I've been on the SEMA board, somehow, Josh, you've been able to go to like so many different SEMA board meetings. When we were meeting, we went to Vegas.
Hawaii.
And that was very memorable experience because that was also during like 2020 in the summer when no one was getting together. And so that was a whole interesting experience. And then, we were in Hawaii together right before the pandemic started. So yeah, like we have had some time together and have been volunteering for a long time. So I have some very memorable experiences with you once we got to know each other more. But what's your first?
All right. So where we first met, now she will remember it once I start telling the story. We were in
Oh,
we
great.
were in LA, Southern California, and it was at a SEMA volunteer. I think it was one of the very first times they actually flew in all the select committee.
Okay.
At that point you were still on a select committee somewhere. You weren't on the board yet.
Mhm.
And so we're introducing everybody, it was a casual thing. Everybody was kind of hanging out in shorts and everybody had drinks and hanging out and everything like that. And so I introduced myself and we started talking. We were in a group of people and someone said, wow, she's third generation. Do you remember this now? Your dad's going to
Yes.
listen to this and he's going to
Well,
kill me.
yeah.
Your dad's going to kill me when he listens to this because what happened, Jesse,
Yeah.
was I said, oh, third generation. Oh, you're the rescue. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, first generation starts a business. Second generation runs it into the ground. And then third generation saves the business. And then that became the joke. She's like, no, my dad didn't run in the ground. My dad actually did really. I said, I'm not really buying it. I'm just like, because if your dad did really well, he would have just sold it. And she's like, no, that's not true. And we were just joking back, just bantering, giving her a hard time and everything like that. So, awesome. As we go into it, you're going to find out Helwig is definitely not that way. It was just Josh being Josh. But now do you remember that?
And now I remember it. When I remember that, but I remember like every conversation you've tried to have in front of my dad about him, like his generation.
Now he's going to listen to this podcast. He could be like, I want to know. Wait, now he knows what I'm looking like. I got to go like this the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, totally.
Her dad's a big guy. He could take me out with one punch. So I got to be careful.
Oh, for sure.
I got
Yeah, easy.
Oh my goodness.
One look.
One look. Yeah. And they look exactly alike. So, oh my gosh. Yeah. So but tell us, how did Helwig get started officially?
Yeah, so my great-grandfather and grandfather started the business. So my great-grandfather and grandfather, both of them had the idea. So like back in 1944, they actually got the patent for a helper spring. So my great grandfather was from a family of spring builders back in like Kansas City. So they used to like completely replace springs. And they had this idea to like maybe they could just add a spring on top. And that was the business that my great grandfather and grandfather started in Southern California. And what they would do, so they both had like full-time jobs of like the entrepreneurial spirit, right? So they both, my grandfather actually was a senior in high school. He even had like an after school job and then would go work at night with his dad, who had a full-time job, and they would manufacture the product during the week. And then they would go sell it on the weekend. So they would sell for small shops. And then they'd also sell to like, just if you had a sagging vehicle in your driveway, they'd go knock on your door because it's super obvious if you need Hellwig, right? It sags. So they'd go knock on your door and they'd say, "Hey, we can fix your problem." And my grandpa, who was like 18, right, like lays in the driveway on his back, installs the product, and they did this all for $7.
$7,
So
$7
like
a spring.
everything.
So they sold
So
it, installed it right on lot after knocking on somebody's door for $7.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
a great deal.
yeah. We don't have the same price point or distribution model. We've upgraded a few things around here.
1944. I mean, we're talking World War II still going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we couldn't get steel in 44, so we had to wait until 46 to start the business.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we turned 78 this year.
Wow.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you get into helper springs. Was that a big problem back then for those cars?
Yeah, so there were a lot of vehicles that were sagging, right? So like, the funny thing is, like people would get into like needing to repair their springs or like increase their load carrying capacity. One, because they were carrying a lot of liquid back in the day, but this is also like NASCAR days. Like this isn't why Hellwig started,
Yeah.
right? But this is like why people would upgrade their springs at one point. Because so during Prohibition, super liquid's really heavy, vehicles would sag. So they would like increase their level load carrying support and they would be able to like, but they did a lot of other things, increase in capacity, all of that fun stuff. So that's, people started to play with their springs then. And in 1946, it was all passenger cars. So like passenger cars, like everyone like camped out of, towed with, like did everything, right? Like they hauled everything in a passenger car. It was like one easy product to sell. So it was like one product hit the whole market.
Nice. So what
It's a little bit.
So when did they actually go full time and say, "Hey, okay, this is our business. We're going to start hiring employees and all that"? Was that?
Yeah, so it's been like a gradual progression, right? So I think that would probably have been like it was fun. My grandpa's no longer with us, but before he had passed away, I got to like interview him and asked him some of those questions. But like the conversation went more like, oh my gosh, this happened in the marketplace and we thought we were going to go out of business, right? This happened and we thought we were right. So like over time they like slowly added employees. And like right now we're at like 50 employees. But over time, we've added more and more team members. They started manufacturing in Southern California and moved up to like Central California where we are now. We got landlocked in the piece of property that we're on now. We've been able to like build onto. So you can see like in 1967, when we moved here, you can see that part of the building and then the other parts that come with it. Every time we've expanded. But at that point, there were 8 employees when we moved here in 67. And 7 of the 8 actually moved with us. So when we started manufacturing here, they like brought trailers. So we're like on this piece of property that had like pecan trees in the back. We still have some of those trees. The ones we haven't pushed out because we expanded. But they would they would like camp during the week. So like that first year, like as Hellwig was moving up here, they came up here like the team would. They'd work during the week and then they'd go home to their families on the weekend and then they moved their families here later. So
That's
it was
cool.
kind
I
of
mean, you guys have always been like
sort of,
very family oriented like that.
yeah, totally. Yeah.
So how did you get started personally, and why did you decide? Did you have thoughts of not doing this business or
Yeah,
other
when did you save your
things?
dad?
When did you?
So we got when they come in and rescue him. Um, so I was not planning on coming into the business. So I went to school. I thought I have a degree in psychology. I thought I'd go further down that path. So either thinking about teaching or going into marriage and family therapy, both what meant more school. And I managed a French gourmet bakery. So I did food service. Anyone that's done that that's a lot of work. Whenever I think I'm working hard, I remember those days, right? And I'm like, "Oh, that's a lot of work." Um, but I managed a bakery and I had a sales rep that would come in and like call on us. And I'm like, oh, I really want her job. Like, that's fun. Like, she gets to come in and like help people and show me new products and they're like, just be a partner, right? And so I was like, that's what I want to do. I was thinking I wanted to do that just for a short time. And so as I was getting ready to go to more school, and I came home that weekend. I lived um, up in Northern California at the time. I came home that weekend and I was like, hey, Dad, I think I want to do this. Like, and I just joked. I was like, does Helwig have anything like that?
Mm.
And he said, it's funny you mentioned that. My sales manager this week said, don't you have a daughter that wants to get into this business? And so it was just this like weird coincidence. And I started cold calling for Hellwig back then, which cold calling, oh man, it is brutal. I like there were days where I just like drive home just crying like the abuse I got that day. And it really forced me to like know my products really well, make sure I'm following up with people. Right. There's like very simple things that you have to do when you are in a sales position or really like in business in general. And I learned to do those in my cold calling days. And it was nothing that I remember feeling very sorry for myself a lot, but at the same time, like nothing would have gotten me prepared like that to have thicker skin.
Wow, that is crazy. I mean, what's harder, cold calling or the bakery?
Ooh, I still probably would go cold calling
Yeah.
because this industry is so fun,
Yeah.
right? Like once you get into it and you know your stuff, that's easy. And I don't think cold calling would be that hard right now. It's just hard because I didn't know the space as
Yeah.
well.
So what are the different jobs that you've had then? So it sounds like you've worked a variety of different roles and you've learned the business that way.
Yeah. So I started cold calling and then I realized like how we needed help in marketing. So it was a marketing role for a while. And then I was, in sales in a sales manager position. Then I became vice president and then president, CEO. So I had and all the time, I worked the position. So I was like marketing for a while and I did that position while still having a sales account title. So I'd work it and then I'd like ask for the title to go with it. And then I'd like do this other job, right? And then I'd ask for the title to go with it. My hardest sell for the title was CEO. But I have it now.
Yeah, you got it now. And
Oh,
did you fire your dad or did he just kind of exit the business quietly?
no, so he's taking more trips like fishing and hunting, but he still comes in when he's in town. So it's really nice. Like he's still here and available to support.
Mhm.
And I can still like pick his brain. And he has the freedom to, travel more too.
Good. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I was a little worried because she did change her name from, she's not Hellwig, it's Melanie White. So I'm like, well, maybe she never wants to do anything with the business. But her dad roped her back in, took over. And
Yeah.
what's been some challenges for you guys over the, I mean, your dad didn't cause the pandemic, but what's
No.
been some challenges for you guys? I mean, how have you guys been doing with the pandemic, and is business back to usual or what?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, but like business, and that's what one of the things I remember, and why I wanted to try sales too is that in business, it's never, uh, you never are stale, right? You always have the market to respond to. I remember reading the Wall Street Journal and thinking like, oh my gosh, business is so fun. Like it is this constant like change. You have to be constantly changing and adapting or die. Um, and I thought that would be really fun. And then the last 4 years have not been, and it has really kicked our butts, right? Like, so the pandemic has been interesting. Like a lot of we're here in California, so like a lot of those dynamics have been interesting too. Just like COVID policies and different things in that space. So, yeah, like there have been things that have definitely that I remember just like a couple months ago going, why did I want to do this so bad? Like, because it not boring is true.
Yeah.
And like sometimes it's like really challenging. But I think it's also been fun because we're constantly having to adapt to like what our customers need. And we have a motto around here, like to always take care of the customer, to be easy to do business with. And that becomes it just is different, right? Like there's a lot of changes in the market, how people buy products, especially like the pandemic. Like I think had a lot more people buying products online. And so, adapting to that and making sure like we have good data, like all of the things that like go with that as well. Like we've really had to adapt. When you're 76, you don't, or 78, I don't know where 76 came from, but you don't move. Sometimes you don't move as quickly.
Yeah. That's probably been a big challenge, just integrating new things to a company that's only done things a certain way for such a long time. How has it
Yeah.
been to be able to get steel and stuff like that? Has that been a challenge? I mean, prices have probably gone through the roof and oh,
Yeah, so we saw prices go through the roof a lot like when tariffs hit. So like during the pandemic, we had major supply issues. It wasn't as much that as to when tariffs happened. I believe that was like a couple years before the pandemic. Um, that's when we saw increases. So we buy all American steel. We make everything here in the US. And so we were like, that won't affect us. But then supply and demand, right? Like everyone's wanting products here from, right? Like they want to buy the steel here, not overseas, which then there's more demand here and the increased prices. So we saw a lot of price increases. We haven't seen that adjust back, but during the pandemic, we saw some increases, like everything increased for us. I don't think every vendor we do business with gave us some sort of price increase. So that was pretty challenging, but for steel, it wasn't as much. And steel is our
yeah.
product.
So what, I mean, I know some of the new Tesla stuff you're doing, but what are the big things you guys are known for that everybody,
Yes, we're really known for helper springs, where we started, and then sway bars. So load and sway control is, and people like, do you have other products? And it's like, yeah, we don't have, like, we have end links, we have some frame effects kits and some other kits, in there. But like what for Hellwig is, while we're not deep in our product line, we're really wide. So we'll do like a sway bar for anything like, we recently quoted like a three-wheel vehicle. But we'll do like a side by side or a golf cart. And then we go all the way up to these military um vehicles. We have one fire truck, like the bars are massive and it takes three sway bars. But you think about like those vehicles need a lot of sway control. Like they need to move fast. It's a fire truck, right? It's an airport fire truck. So they need to move super fast and they have to carry a lot of water with them. So they need extra sway control. So we have our aftermarket brand. So we have Hellwig Products there, but then we also like sell into these OE spaces. So original equipment. So as they're building the vehicle, our equipment gets included in on.
Mhm. Go ahead, Jesse.
I was just going to say, uh, looking back, since you've gone on quite a journey from cold calling all the way to CEO, what would you tell?
Yeah.
You probably learned a lot of lessons. What would you tell your younger self just starting out in the industry?
I think just be willing to learn, right? Like, one of the biggest things that in this industry in particular is that people want to help you. They absolutely like, and it still gives me chills, right? To think about like just how helpful this community is. So I remember, like having a question and not knowing an answer to it. And it wasn't like the answer wasn't within my organization either. And I remember like picking up the phone call and being like nervous as all get out. Like, I can't believe I'm calling this person to ask them. And they were like, oh, easy peasy. Hey, you do this and it's this. And do you want me to send you that spreadsheet to make your life easier? So it was just like those sorts of things that started to teach me that I could rely on if I didn't have the answer myself, like be willing to ask the question and people will like not just like step up, like absolutely step up and are so helpful here. So just don't pretend like I knew it. Like don't pretend you know anything. That's what I would tell myself, my younger self. Like just ask questions
It,
of
it is
people.
true in our industry that, if you act like you know it all, and actually, I mean, it's a big turnoff in the industry. People are like, come on, we know you don't know everything. But the more you're like, yeah, I don't know anything, people are so willing to help you out. And if you come in with
Yeah.
that little bit of a humble attitude and say, yeah, I've got a good thing coming here, but I don't really know what's going on, everybody's willing to help you out. And then all of a sudden they find out, oh, yeah, you do know a little something. Then you're like, yeah, I guess I could help you with this. I mean, I didn't think I knew that, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like whoever set that trend years and years and years ago, it's kind of
Mhm.
created that kind of industry identity, and it's just kind of stuck. What do you think, Melanie?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is absolutely a part of like our DNA as an industry that we want people to be successful, right? Like even like I think what we do, Josh, when we like volunteer, right? We're volunteering sometimes next to our competition.
Yeah.
And but our competition, I think this is one of the biggest things that we learned in the pandemic. And this is not someone else highlighted this for me, but that our competition is not like the competition in our space, right? Our competition is eating out, movies, going to concerts, right? Like that's what we saw in the pandemic is there was a huge drive to people working on their cars once that wasn't available. And so like I think that was like a really good kind of test or takeaway that we could move forward with, right? Like our competition being successful rises a tide and us being successful rises a tide, right? So it's like a rising tide floats all boats. And that's, but if we're not like helping each other, we're not going to all be successful. So I think that was like the magic. If we had some magic that happened during the pandemic, right?
Yeah. Do you guys? So you mentioned you guys have customers that on the OEM side, and then you also have your
Mhm.
aftermarket side. Which one's bigger? Which or are they the same? And what is what is the difference between those two types of markets for you guys?
Yeah, so I think for the aftermarket side, it's bigger for us. And but it's a pretty healthy, like we also do private label. So like I always I'll buy toilet paper. I think I'm thinking of the pandemic and how you couldn't, right? But like if you go by like to Target, Target has their own brand. Target doesn't make toilet paper. So I often am like, okay, I'll buy that because it's probably like Charmin or someone that's making it. So there's often times where someone's like, oh, I bought this sway bar and it's like, oh yeah, like I made it. Like, but people don't necessarily know that, right? There's very few people that make way bars. Um, and we're one of them. So we do have a label program. And then we have the OE part of our business. And that, thinking about those two separate ones, we do have that. And the aftermarket side is really fun because you get to create the demand for it. And the OE, we're responding to demand.
Yeah.
So, that I think that's like the overarching difference between the two.
That's great.
So far, she's nailing all the questions, Jesse.
Yeah,
so we got to
absolutely.
step up the game here. All right. So, what about? So tell us. Let's talk about SEMA for a minute. First of all, I was telling Jesse earlier, your company that your great grandfather started was one of the very first manufacturers at the very first SEMA show, Dodger Stadium. What year was that? 63?
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
1963. So, I mean, how
Yeah.
many other companies can say that are still in business? Not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like there are very few. So there's and I can share it with you. There's like this, I thought I had it right next to me and I could pull it up, but there's this ad for the first SEMA show. And it has like the different companies. And they're wearing it's like a baseball field and everyone's wearing their jersey. And like there's a Hellwig dude on home base. But he's got the Hellwig jersey. But you can see like Holly, Edelbrock. There's some like pretty big companies there too. So they all have like, but it's fun to like look at that ad and think like who's still around, right? And there still are like you can look at it and there still are a good amount, but there are some that aren't there anymore either. So yeah.
Or they've all merged or something like that.
Well,
or
yeah.
whatever.
That's not the fun part about it,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're leading a team now, right? And you've seen different parts of the business. I love when I hear a story about somebody that was family owned and kind of grew up in it and then worked their way through all of the different jobs. You probably even had to be janitors sometimes, right? So done a little bit of
Totally.
everything. And then now as CEO, how many employees do you guys have? And what's your, what kind of team do you have? I'm curious to hear about it.
Yeah, so we have 50 employees right now. And I often like to think of us as like a team, right? So and I I have not been into football, but I'm like getting into it because my kid's in it and then realizing it's a much more dynamic sport than I first thought it was just a bunch of dudes out there like hitting each other. So but there's much more strategic, right? So I've been telling my team that I feel like we're more like a football team here, right? So like we got like offense and defense and everyone's got their position. And if someone's not blocking or tackling, right, then it affects someone else on the team. So we talk about that often here. But yeah, so we have and I have an executive team, I have a management team, I have people here. I think the thing that's kind of fascinating for some is like I have team members here that have worked for my grandpa, right? So like not anyone here has worked for my great grandfather, but my grandpa. So like they've worked for 3 generations and we're very different. And I think part of it is also like when I first came into this position, I tried to be more like them. I'm not like them. There's a big difference. And I've learned my own style of leadership, management, and then I've also like really learned to lean on the knowledge here and the history that we have.
Was that
So,
difficult for a little
that's
while?
been kind of
Was
fun.
it difficult at first with some of those the people that have been there for a long time to earn their respect since they knew so much and they've been around forever with your grandpa? Or was it easy? Or did they welcome you with open arms, or how did that go?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, right? Like there's a part that like, okay, it's gonna stay family owned. So that's one aspect of it. That's positive. But I did absolutely have to earn their respect. And I still like have that pressure to continue to earn the respect, right? Like because and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's something good, like that I feel that like constant drive. I want them to be like proud to be a part of Hellwig. I want them to be proud to come to work every day and like do what we're doing. It's not easy work, like bending metal. It is like really hard, hot. Like we heat treat hot forms, so we have furnaces. And we couldn't do it. Like none of this could happen if we weren't doing it all together. And so I've really learned to like lean on that more and more over the time. But it definitely like at first did not. I'm some gal. Like I really have tried to like do every position at some point, right? Like I've boxed stuff, but no one lets me no one wants to be my partner in the hot
Yeah, I was
forming
gonna say,
area.
you're not
So
getting
I
near a
haven't got
furnace,
to start on yet.
you know?
Yeah. I'm a little accident prone. So they're like, yeah, we're all good
Yep.
here.
Our CO just got burned up. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't do undercover
You just
boss, okay?
are.
Don't do undercover
Yeah.
boss.
Yeah.
You're not gonna
So
fool us.
no. They don't. Yeah. They're like, nope.
All right, so let's talk SEMA. We're talking to the chair elect. Tell us what that means for the board.
Yeah. So I'm chair elect of the SEMA board of directors. So in a in 2 Julys, I will take the chair position. So I'll be the chair of the board of directors.
Wow.
Uh,
That's big time, Jesse. That's big time.
That's quite an
Very
honor.
influential. You get the high end room at all the retreats. Let me just tell you.
Well,
And unlimited drinks.
yeah.
So I'm trying to think, what was the last lady that was a chair?
So one before, and it was Charlie Van Cleve.
Wow. So
And
that's quite an accomplishment. I'm surprised there hasn't been so many more. There's so many great women in our industry. But
There really are. I know.
and why did you want to do it? What would get it? Why would you want to go for this and take on this responsibility?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great
because
question.
the pay
Some people have
sucks.
said, do you need the pay really sucks. Do you need a second job? But I have a 14-year-old. I think I see like that we're under a lot of pressure as an industry. And I think if we're not making the right moves, and being assertive or aggressive, in that space, to protect our rights to modify vehicles, then we're not going to have, be able to do that. Right. If we're being more complacent. And I'm incredibly passionate about like, right. I'm fourth generation. I would not have this opportunity unless like SEMA came together. That's how SEMA came together, right? They came together to ban against, I forget the actual, like what was, the government, like what they felt wasn't a government overreach at the time, but they got together. And yes, they created a show, but they really like came together to be able to like, protect their businesses. And so I see that as a major benefit for me. And Hellwig is continuing to protect us. Like we're only stronger if we are working together, right? Me as Hellwig over here, 50 employees is not near as strong as, we're looking at like we're like in the billions of what we impact in this in the United States. And so there's a lot that I want to see us be able to protect. And that's why I signed up for the second job.
Yeah, it is a second job. Because you've been on SBN, right? Were you select
So
committee?
I was I
Okay.
was never on their
Torah?
select committee. So I did Torah,
Okay.
the truck and off-road, when it was actually the Light Truck Accessory Alliance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did that for several years, and then I was the chair of that council. And then after that, I went to Emerging Trends and Technology.
Gotcha.
Um,
And
was
Ian would
on
love
that.
for us to say, now who was the chair of ETTN?
Ian.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think he beat you out by 1 vote. And let's
Yeah.
just say if they would have done a recount, there's no way Ian would have won. So I don't know how you
That's
lost.
okay. Worked out perfectly. He did. Ian was the right person for that time for sure. So I'm, looking back, I'm like, oh, I'm very glad he got that position.
Yeah.
So
So which is great.
yeah.
You ran for the board. So you did 3 years. And
Mhm.
then were you in your fourth or fifth year when you decided to go for the chair?
Did 3 years, got reelected,
Yep.
and I had another 3-year
Oh, you
term,
did
but decided 1
6.
year in that I would go
Oh,
for
okay,
this.
gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you've done 4
Yeah.
years on the board. Now you're in your first year of chair elect. Now you're gonna do another year chair
Yes.
elect, and then 2 years as chair, and then 2 more years as IPC. By that time, you'll have a vote, by the way. So,
Yeah.
wow, that's a lot of I mean, you're probably gonna have well over 20, what, 3, 4 years of volunteering.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 20 years in right now, right into in 19 years I've been volunteering. So,
Wow, it's amazing. What would you say to people that if they ask, well, why are you doing it? What's it? I mean, besides all what you just mentioned there, but what personal benefit for you besides the future generations? What personal benefit have you seen out of it?
I mean, I'm connected to you. I could pick up the phone. I know how, right? Like I have picked up the phone and been like, "Hey, can you answer this question for me?" Like it doesn't make sense, right? Like I think that's the big thing that I mentioned earlier too is like having a network to rely on. And like honestly, sometimes like gut check, like, "Hey, is this right? Like, is this also what you're seeing?" It's been really positive. So
Yeah.
growing my network,
Yeah. It's huge. It's because it becomes a big family,
it
friends
does.
and family and everything like
Yeah.
that. Go ahead, Jesse. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, back to Hellwig. I'm fascinated with your business. Really, kind of interesting, and I want to know more about, how do you deal with customers, and how do you got to deal with restylers sometimes, right? They're really tough, I hear, and I'm wondering,
Yeah.
how do you deal with tough situations with them? And I'm sure you've seen some challenging customers or people like Josh, maybe, or something like that, right?
No
Yeah. So
comment. No
I think
comment.
yeah, so is it no comment? Is that what I'm supposed to
No,
say?
no.
Yeah. No, I think that's, right. We've always had this like, do the right thing for the customer, and it's been always a motto. And we have a lifetime warranty. We can have that on our products because we manufacture, and the way that we manufacture it's steel, it's super heavy duty, heat treated hot form. So it's like, it's meant to last a lifetime for sure. So we have that lifetime warranty. So it makes it really easy, right? If there's an issue with something, we take care of them. And yeah, there are times where it's been like, wait, is that on us? But the lifetime warranty, like that, it isn't like, well, only if you're smart, right? It's there are some caveats in it. Um, and so it's all on steel products, but I think that makes it really easy. And my team also here knows like we love our customers, we take care of them, we go the extra mile for them. Because um I think that's when you have like so many years of success and you know that your success came from like having a partnership, not from, you're just awesome and that's right. It's like we couldn't do what we do without having like a good partnership with our customers. We always are taking that
That's
approach.
great. You mentioned partnerships. Do you have examples or any stories about a partnership or collaboration that's made a big difference for your business or the industry?
Yeah, I mean, there's on some of the things that we do, we get to often like test products and work with other companies that in that space. And I think I'm probably like covered by an NDA, so I can't like talk too much about them. But it's really fun to like come and like collaborate with other companies and what they're doing. We work with a lot with like project vehicles too. People that are building vehicles to like take to SEMA, really like that are pushing the edge of aftermarket modifications. And I think that's where it's like really fun to to be in partnership and like work on those sort of projects with them so that we also like get to see what that edge looks like, right? And I think that's where you really learn when you're like playing in those spaces.
Where do you think the future's going for Hellwig?
Yeah, no, I mean, luckily, like we can make products for Tesla, right? Like, so anything, any vehicle, like we can still modify it with suspension. But really in the tow and haul space, like there are so many products, or needs for Hellwig in that space. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that exists right now, and continues to exist. And then, as vehicles change, we get to change with that as well. So, I remember my grandpa talking about like when passenger cars, the leaf springs went to coil springs, and he was like, I'm gonna be like, I don't know when I'm gonna be able to put my products on. Then trucks came out and that became like our bread and butter. So like there's always these opportunities. So not looking at the market and like as it shifts, like going, oh my God, like it's also like, okay, what's the opportunity in it? And like finding that opportunity for us to meet a customer issue, right? Like we're solving problems here. Like if a vehicle sags, we get to bring it up to level load height. If it's weighing, we get to like solve that. And so it's just looking at like what vehicles are hitting the road and what Helwig can do to like help with those modifications.
And I just realized I owe you a huge apology. This is correct, and I'm going to put this on record. You know, you're actually fourth generation. You're not third generation. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I need to apologize to your dad. Your dad saved the company from your grandpa.
So
So your
yeah,
dad is the one that actually saved the company. Now, the only problem with that is you know what happens to fourth generation. So I need to talk to your son. Is he there?
yeah,
Can I get him on? We need to talk because he needs to get involved
I
quickly,
know. Yeah,
quickly,
quickly.
because she's spending so
Yeah.
much time volunteering. You're probably 30 hours a week with SEMA and 10 hours a week at Hellwig. I know how those emails roll. So,
Yeah. I wish it was 40 hours was all that was going
oh yeah,
into
yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. 50 hours at SEMA and 50 hours at Hellwig.
yeah.
That's
I'm like a little bit more accurate to the
yeah.
time, right? But
Uh-huh.
yeah, no, Helwig is good and we're healthy I don't know. My kid I mean he's 14, so we'll see. But
Yeah.
he's like, Mom, I want to be an entrepreneur, but he wants like his thing is right now, he's like, I want to do it myself. Like I don't want to like come in and take something that's been there. I want to like start something myself. So we'll see what that means
Listen,
for
those
him.
furnaces can make rocket parts too. So
Yep,
you got the structure, do whatever. So, no worries
we
there.
do.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you see? So I mean, I know you're really big on government overreach. I mean, you live in California, so you're dealing with, very well the CARB issues that's facing the industry. I know you were very active with all those things. So she's got all this going on over there. And then all of a sudden she's like SEMA Cares. So I feel like you're almost like, it's like you're making cupcakes over here, and then over here you're cooking steak too. So I mean,
Yeah.
you're killing it on both ends. What do you think? As far as, let's talk first about the government overreach. Where do we stand right now with all the different ideas and laws and dangers, and how do you think SEMA's really taken the initiative? Obviously, we're doing great, and with the attorneys and such like that. But I'll let you speak to it.
Yeah, so I think we're in a really good spot. As a member looking at it, I'm feeling really positive about what we're doing. And I think there's always more that we could be doing. So in May, there's like a SEMA DC rally. So they'll organize like where members can come and like talk to different congressmen, uh, senators, and really like be able to talk about like what we're doing and what we bring to the industry, right? I think one of the biggest things that SEMA did recently was show like our impact, our economic impact, right? Like it's not just like us as companies and what like people buying our product, but like what happens, right? The ripple effect of like having 50 employees and what that brings to an economic area, right? Like how that like then like filters out. So I think there's like really good things happening on that end that will help give attention in Washington, D.C. But last week I was at King of the Hammers. I love going there. I love seeing like the amount of like, I mean, all those people are my people, right? Like they're all towing and need our products. And I'm there and I'm thinking like, we all want to like continue to do this, right? So what does that mean? Like we need like education, like Matt from shoot. But they do the cleanup.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Where you mean the trail cleanup?
Yes.
Yeah.
So like he was there. There's a name. Sorry, it's like he has an organization that comes in and like makes sure like we clean up after we're in certain areas, right? So I think it's like education on how to do it responsibly,
Mm-hmm.
and then protecting the right to do it as well. Like it's not just like one thing. We don't just have the right to do it and like there's no responsibility. We also have responsibility with it. So doing like both sides of that.
Going four-wheeling and then leaving it better than when you got there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, which is not really the way it was in the past. So it's taken a big initiative
No.
to really do
Yeah.
that. So, all right. So I think I'm going to get her on this one, Jesse. So in that economic impact study, which I'm sure you've memorized by now, but name an industry that were actually larger in economic than in that industry? I think I got her on recording here.
I know. I think you do. I do know that we're not as large as the beer industry. So
correct.
That's the one that I do know.
Despite Bud Light.
Yeah. So
all right.
Yeah. So we would be bigger if we could all just stop drinking beer for a little bit.
Everybody stop drinking, and then our industry will be bigger than theirs. We are larger than Hollywood as a whole.
Wow.
The movie industry, and we are larger than the airline industry.
Wow.
Yeah.
But we are not as large as the beer industry because
Yes.
this country is full of alcoholics. So, yes. And we don't.
Maybe our industry.
Yeah. Because I'm sure when you were
if we all just stop drinking, we might make the impact.
I'm sure at King of the Hammers last week, you weren't picking up any DVDs rolling around or after the trail or anything like that.
No.
It was all, it could possibly been some alcoholic bottles or cans. So there you go. Our industry goes hand in hand with theirs. So we actually help their industry. So
It's probably the reason why that industry is so big.
yeah, because our industry is so big.
Yes. Yeah.
As we grow, their numbers grow as well.
Yeah, like we should take credit for that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk just a minute because I mentioned it. Let's talk about, you volunteered so long for SEMA Cares, and I know other people are doing really well about that too. Talk about that and also some of the other things that SEMA does to really give back to people besides just protecting the industry.
Yeah, so SEMA Cares is for 3 different charities. So Victory Junction Game Camp, Child Health, and then Austin Hatcher Foundation. So it's like 3 different children's charities. And the cool thing is, SEMA Cares is completely like volunteer led. We do a lot of like fundraising activities that are really fun. But I think the other part that we do for those charities as well is like giving awareness to them. And I forgot that in my volunteer journey, I was chair of SEMA Cares, and that was really fun. Like I was able to like, take my kiddo to Victory Junction Game Camp. That's like this camp for kids that have like disabilities, and so like each week they have like the week that we were there was like diabetes week. And so they have nurses specifically for that, those needs. And so it allows like kids the opportunity to like go to camp and be normal like that week. And so that has been really fun to see like those parts of SEMA that give back. But there's so many areas that SEMA gives back to, and like scholarship, really like getting more kids involved. Yeah, it's been super fun. And I think like the fun part of it too, it's like a lot of it that we do is like volunteer led. So it's not like SEMA as the organization. It's really like the volunteers like directing. That's been really fun to see.
So hear me out on this idea. Let me just throw this idea at you because you're going to be the chair. So you could write an executive order for anything. All right. And I know you usually don't.
Okay, let's pretend that for a little bit.
Yeah, sure. No, listen, come on. I know how things work. So um, I'm going to start an organization, but I don't want you to get upset about it. It's called SEMA Don't Cares. So what SEMA Don't Cares is because you have SEMA Cares that does such a fantastic job. However, what if we could still give to the same people like the Austin Hatcher Foundation and all things like that, but the people that sometimes get upset at SEMA, that'll be my, I'll still grab their money. I'll be like, yeah, well, SEMA Cares over there. Why don't you donate over here to SEMA Don't Cares? Because sometimes people are like, oh, this organization's too big. I don't, and they get, whatever, a little upset. All right, well, donate over here to SEMA Don't Cares, but the money will still go to the same place. What do you think?
Well, we could try it.
I already have a logo and everything. I'll send it to you.
I've met you too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't have to chair it, but, I'm willing to put in the time.
Obviously.
Yeah, I'm willing to put in the time. Yeah. So SEMA Don't Cares coming to you 2025 when Melanie becomes chair.
Cares.
Awesome.
So, Melanie, what are you most looking forward to doing now, and what most excites you about your business?
Yeah, so this 2024, so I'm doing a lot of traveling and seeing customers. I'm doing like I haven't had the opportunity over the last few years to like do a lot of like customer shows and things, and I am like signed up for all of them right now. And I'm actually really excited. I love like talking to people who use our products, who can give me feedback too of like, hey, if you change this one thing, this would really help me. Like so I've been doing a lot more like traveling, educating and things like that. So I've been really having fun, like diving back into kind of my roots, right, of where I started with Helwig. But it's also making me better here because I'm like listening out, like what do we need to be doing and what do we need to be adjusting? And I'm hearing it directly, and I can take that directly into my team and production and making the changes here. So I think that's one of the most fun things I'm looking forward to in 2024 is really like getting out and talking to customers and getting feedback. So, yeah,
I think you
it's
need
gonna be a fun
to have
year.
a competition at your company. Everybody go out and do one cold call and see what happens.
Oh God.
Yeah, right. Including you. You have to go cold call on just some aimless thing. Oh my gosh, how scary would that be? Because if everybody just does one, that's 50 new cold call counts. So
I know that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, take the stuff we all hate and just spread it across the board.
And just spread
That's-
it. Yeah. But I think some people will be like, I'm fine. I'll sit in front of a furnace all day
Yeah,
long.
you know what? Those guys, the
That furnace doesn't yell
furnace
at
guys
me.
get a pass. The furnace guys get a
Yeah,
pass,
yeah.
no doubt. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, it's awesome to see what you're doing with the business, and thank you so much for all your volunteer work. I mean, you truly are one of the nicest people in the industry. Even when I try to make you mad or I try to ask you awkward questions or anything like that, she's always so professional, so nice. It almost like some people have even said, I think, is she fake? I'm like, no, it's actually real. She's really nice all the time. So, you really are the sweetheart of the industry, but I'm so excited because, you have so much knowledge and willingness and desire to get the industry, make sure it's going in the right direction. And so we have 3 great years of you chair-elect and then 2 years as chair that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, thank you. I love volunteering. Like it's been so fun to do that with you, right? Like that's it's easy to be friendly when you're working with
Well, when
good
you're
people.
not getting paid, it's easier to be friendly too. Let's be honest. When you're doing this stuff for free, it's like, what are they going to do? Fire me? Which has almost happened.
Yeah. I mean, I've pushed plenty of buttons too. So but that happens, right? When you're playing at the edges, like in order to like make change and do those things, you kind of have to like push some buttons. And while I am friendly, I'll do it with a smile, but like, we're going to push a button, right? Like we're going to push a boundary
And that's
sometimes.
where I mess up. I don't smile. I don't have the good smile like
But
you
you don't
do.
smile when you do it.
Yeah.
Oh, just smile when you do it.
That's
Yeah.
I'm learning stuff. I'm learning stuff every day. Well, so Jesse has one final question for you. However, I'm never, so even on the podcast, I didn't ask you my famous question, but I'm not going to, but
Okay. Does the podcast, do people know what your famous question is?
no. You can tell the story if you want. I mean, do you have any embarrassing stories about me? I'm an open book. You know that. What's
I know that.
what's an embarrassing story about me? I don't mind being
No,
embarrassed.
because then it's like you enjoy those embarrassing stories because you don't really get embarrassed.
It's
Like
true.
other people get embarrassed. It's like you love it more. So I don't think I want to tell that story.
It's true.
It would just feed the
Oh.
beast. It would just
Yeah.
feed it.
Yeah, don't feed the beast.
It would just like, yeah, he would like we would see you giggle and like, yeah.
Yeah. We'll have somebody on, but we'll have to like shadow their face, change their voice, and they'll
Yes.
tell the story
Yes.
then because they're embarrassed
Yeah,
about it.
totally. That
Put
would
them
be
in the
great. I
witness
would love
witness
that.
protection program after that.
Well, one time,
Yeah.
so I will tell one funny story, Jesse, for your final question. So, I don't know. I don't know if this is confidential. We were on a task force together, right, to decide on who was going to be nominated to run for the board. And so Melanie and I were asked to interview somebody, and
I do remember
it was
this.
on Zoom. It was during COVID, so we had to do a one-on-one interview with this person. We're asking really, good questions about the industry. What would you do here? What would you do? Because this person potentially could be on the board of directors, and we actually have some say on whether they should be allowed to go forward or not. So they're doing an interview, and they take it so serious. So was it at the end or the beginning? I think it was at the end. Yeah, I think
It was at the very end. And I was like, nope, don't do it. And we were straight. We did not smile. We were like hard questions the whole time. And I could tell him like, Josh,
I just couldn't take it. I
I'm
couldn't
just
take
shaking
it.
my head. And he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm like,
So then I asked this person a very embarrassing question, personal question. And they're just like, and Melanie stops it. She's like, you don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that. That was not on the sheet. So fortunately, the person was a great jokester himself. So it was fine.
He handled it very
handled
well.
He
Yeah.
handled it. But I was
Yeah.
barred from ever asking that question again for poor nominees. So now it's
Yes.
only one-on-one.
Yeah.
Melanie,
In person, not recorded.
Melanie, if anybody has questions for you about Hellwig or about SEMA, how do they get a hold of you? And what are some good websites to go to? Where would you direct people?
Yeah. So hellwigproducts.com for all Hellwig questions on Facebook. We're Hellwig Products there. Instagram, Hellwig Products. LinkedIn, we have the Hellwig Products. And then I'm on LinkedIn at Melanie Hellwig White.
Awesome.
What about your podcast? What's the name of that?
When my podcast, Hellwig's podcast is Hitched in Holland with Hellwig.
Hitched in Holland. Awesome.
Hitched in Holland with Hellwig. Love it. Good name.
Yeah. Yeah. So check it out.
Absolutely.
And Josh, we'll have to have you on. Maybe on my podcast, I'll let you ask that question.
Ooh.
Probably not.
Oh, yeah. Probably
No, I'll
not.
probably be like,
Yeah. I want to bring
no.
each of your employees in one at a time.
No. Not something I don't want to know.
It's true. Very true.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having it. Keep up the awesome work. Thanks for being on with us.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
And there you have it, another high-octane episode of the Ride and Style podcast. Revved up and ready to go. Your hosts, Jesse Stoddard and Josh Polson, shifted your automotive game into overdrive. If you're hungry for more insights, trends, and game-changing interviews from the automotive restyling universe, don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a glowing review. We'd also love for you to share this podcast with your gearheads, installers, and auto lovers network. Because remember, knowledge is power, but shared knowledge turbocharges the whole industry. For more expert resources to supercharge your business, cruise on over to autostylemarketing.com, your one-stop shop for everything automotive marketing. Until next time, keep those wheels spinning and your passion ignited. Thank you for riding in style with us. See you on the next lap.